on a Monday, coming off a massive pay-per-view weekend. I'm a little excited to talk about it because it was that good of a show. Are we getting Bryan Danielson and Nigel McGuinness? Is it going to happen on the same weekend where the Oasis rumors are out there, my favorite band of all time, and then Nigel McGuinness comes out to, wait a minute in, I can't say it, yes, effing in the bushes? Are you kidding me? The next time, I put it on my Instagram, the next time Nigel McGuinness makes an entrance in the UK, I want Noel and Liam Gallagher on the same stage playing them out. That's what I want. What a show yesterday. What a time to be a wrestling fan. All in yesterday. Bash at Berlin. No Mercy. All out. In the next 2 weeks, we're getting all this wrestling. What a time. If you're complaining about anything to do with wrestling right now, in a very strong way about all the stuff that's going on, you don't know how good you have it. And my goodness, you can tell by how excited I am. What up to WWE for Life? What up to Phil? What up to B-May? B-May, you're going to come up in a sec. We're going to talk about you because we have some good news for you. But what up to everybody? How's it going? Welcome into the wrestling mat as we wind down in August, but wind up even more wrestling because you know what I like to do? I like to come back and talk about wrestling even more, and I get to do a lot of that today. Obviously, a lot of talk about AEW coming off the weekend. Did they have their best pay-per-view ever? Did they have that yesterday? If you watched, and you've watched them, and I want to make that clear, if you have been an avid fan, did you feel like that effort that was put on yesterday was their best? Maybe a better way to frame it, was it their most important effort with everything going on? A very big week of announcements, and who knows if there's more to come? Who knows? I don't know. We're going to see. But it certainly felt like they put their best foot forward in a very big way at a very important time. And I'll tell you what, as a wrestling fan, it was just nice to watch. And not everything was great. Look, we're going to get into the entire show. Not everything, I think, hit the way they wanted to. But rarely does a wrestling pay-per-view hit on that level, to that level. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, but you want the big stuff to hit. And I think the majority of the big stuff hit. We're going to get into all that today. There's also some talk about one Kevin Owens being in the news. Well, we've talked about, I think, as you guys know, very glowingly. I'm a big KO guy because he's always been good to me. But Kevin Owens in the news because perhaps he only has a little time left on his contract. Perhaps it's less than 6 months. So there you go. That is the story that is out there right now. Because he told SI that the only change in his contract is that there's less time. So looks like he's under 6 months to go in WWE. We'll talk more about that. And speaking of that, and people changing companies, we did see the debut of Ricochet. Are we even talking about that today? Did everything else that happened on the show matter more than that moment? Did that moment hit the way it should have? He wrestled and then cut a promo, so it hit in a good way. Well, that helps. But were there bigger things that happened in the Casino Gauntlet than Ricochet showing up in it? You heard my excitement from Nigel McGuinness. Nigel McGuinness back with Oasis, back with a walk, with a look that looked like he hadn't left. Guy hasn't wrestled in a decade plus. I watched The Last of McGuinness. It is a very tough documentary to watch. I felt what he felt. But him walking out in Wembley Stadium, and I've seen the pictures. He posted it. Seemed like he was going to work there last year. It wasn't going to be Danielson. Who knows? But that guy walked out like he just wrestled the night before. Like he had just worked Collision or worked a Rev Pro show or worked a Ring of Honor. Just walked right out. Boom. And here he is. And he walks out there, and who had Nigel McGuinness walking out there in his return, and the first person he's going to touch is Kazuchika Okada. Are you kidding me? I mean, they did such a good job building and building. And I know I'm jumping right into it, but that's how excited I am. And I'm watching this and following along on Twitter. You have usually a good idea, I think, of where a show is at and how it's going to feel. I can usually, from doing this for a while, get a good sense of, is there buzz? Is there excitement? And you can kind of read that on social media. You can see people talking about it, having discussions. And it felt strong, and it felt like that. And I'm seeing the chat right now light up. What up, Yobi? What's up, Ken? Hello, JE19. Like, the fact that you could feel that juice going into the show and 50,000 plus seats sold. I mean, oh, man, that's awesome. Doug, you were there. What a night. Lucky enough to be on the floor and close to the ring. Loved every minute. Doug, that is awesome. Holy hell. What a show you got to watch. And I'll tell you what, there were so many of those moments on the show that the crowd brought up even more. Or simple moments that if it happened somewhere else, it wouldn't have been a big deal. I watched a clip right before I came on. Nigel and Zack Sabre Jr., fresh off the G1 win. Fresh off a win at the G1. He's going to get Naito for the IWGP Championship sooner than normal. He wants it in the next 2 months. And then you get Zack Sabre and Nigel facing off, and there is no better organic reaction in wrestling than seeing the fans behind ringside, and I'm sure it was everywhere, come up because of a face-off. Come up like they did for Kenny Omega and Bryan Danielson at Grand Slam. Come up like they did for Nigel McGuinness and Zack Sabre Jr. Just the idea of the face-off. Rock Hogan, Stokely and Ishii, all the same. All right, maybe not the last one as much, but that was good too. But Nigel and Zack Sabre standing across from each other. And here's what I want to tell you this, and you might be wild to hear this coming from my wrestling brain. I didn't get to see a lot of Nigel growing up for whatever reason. And I watched Ring of Honor. I didn't watch it a ton. I watched it more after the fact. But I know what Nigel means, and I was lucky enough to work with him on multiple occasions. You're going to find someone there in Nigel that people were excited to see for various reasons. I think being able to go, oh my God, I was there for his return and I watched him growing up. Hey, I watched The Last of the McGuinness. I watched his documentary. I saw what he went through when, he thought he had reached the heights and then it got taken away from him. And the mental strife that put him through. J.E. just saying, I only knew him as a commentator on NXT. And God, has he gotten so good at that. Man, I only got to do it a handful of times. Unfortunately, and I this is not something like I'm happy to talk about. I called Level Up on Nigel's last show, and I didn't know it was. And neither did he. We taped on a Tuesday. He was released the next day or 2 days later. I don't think people know that. And I didn't know how to even promote it because I actually felt bad. It was like, hey, it was like the second or third time I was lead play-by-play. And, we taped that on Tuesday night. And then Friday, it airs, at 10 o'clock. And I knew he was gone. And I liked Nigel too much to promote that. I didn't think it was fair. And that happened to people. I mean, he wasn't the only one that appeared on programming after they got let go. Hell, Bobby Lashley just showed up on Family Feud after his contract expired. I don't think WWE planned that out. I don't think the Family Feud execs planned that one out. But I got to be on the call for Nigel's last WWE show. And God, he has moved on to bigger and better things since then. And I watched it from that angle last night. I watched a guy walk down to ringside who looked like he hadn't missed a beat, who walked with the swagger. We 10 minutes in now, can I say it? He came out to Fucking in the Bushes, which is one of my all-time favorite Oasis songs. It is a song that hits that Oasis used to, and maybe still again, would come out to at the beginning of their shows. You can hear it. the way the crowd erupted, I couldn't hear it yesterday. I thought he did, and then I went back and watched the clips and went, oh my God, they got it. Of course Toni got it. Toni gets that. And yes, Rob, we were indeed mad for it. Holy hell. Like Nigel, Oasis, Wembley, Zack Sabre Jr., Okada, Kyle. I mean, and we're on it. That gauntlet. In the context, okay? In the context, because I mean, the Rumbles had all these people. In the context of what AEW is and who they had available at their disposal. They've done this match before, and they had done it when Will won it. And there was CMLL guys, and there was New Japan guys, and it's still a great. I mean, there was, and Will was in it, and it wasn't a big one. This was a bigger one. Not every multi-man match could be that loaded up, but I'll tell you what, when it was like, Hangman, Okada, Zach, Kyle, Orange Cassidy, we got Christian later on who won it. Who was the least big name in there? Kill Switch, and he had a big role in the match. But to load up a match like that to that level, they have something in that match. And you could see how Tony's face lit up yesterday when he was talking about that. And he's like, I've only do it in places I'm familiar with. We got to take it, he's done it in Chicago and he did it there. And I think he did it in Jacksonville. When you get a match like that hits in that way, I don't think they could load it up to that level every time, but there were no letdowns in terms of, like I said, even if Kill Switch is like the lowest star in the match, what he did was important. Boom, music and entrance after entrance. And I will say this, Ricochet came out and it was a big deal and people were excited. Kind of faded in the background. And I guess he's going to wrestle Kyle Fletcher on Wednesday, who was back very much with Don, which I didn't love. If you ask me, there's more money in Kyle Fletcher than Ricochet, and I'd love to know what you guys think of that, because I have been a growing Kyle Richards fan. Kyle Richards, I'm talking about Real Housewives now. Can you tell what I watch my fiance and when it's not wrestling? Kyle Fletcher. I've been my fandom in him has grown in each passing week, and I think he could. I get Ricochet has more name value. I understand that, but I think Kyle Richards a better total package. Kyle Fletcher's a better total package. Absolutely, he is. I don't know if I'm being controversial in that. Kyle can cut a better promo. I know that. Probably minds his business on Instagram too. But big, to have that kind of match. I kept looking, you hear the music and you're throwing back the entranceway. I'm like, is Lashley coming out? Like, I didn't know. I didn't think he was going to, but Ricochet came out and it was big, but it didn't feel like the biggest part of the show. And maybe that's more of a credit to the show that they put on. Not that it was going to be the biggest part of a show, but so many other things happened that I was also kind of like, man, what a massive show they had. And, right, Ricochet too, and that's fine. On the pre-show, Jamie Hayter comes back because Saraya comes out to no response with a bunch of people, some of which were her family, some of which weren't, because they were out there clearly to take the bumps for Jamie Hayter. I saw some people complaining that it didn't happen on the main show. Not the biggest deal. No, I don't, because where do you put that? She just comes out and yells that she's not on the show. No, you do it on 0 Hour because you sell the show. You give them a little juice. Whoa, that happened. There you go. You get people. You put a big angle on there because you had a 9-match main card. Jamie Hayter looked great. She looked ready to go. Ospreay is in the role she should be playing. They gave her some time in the press thing where she complained again. Whatever. I don't think that presence matters like it did. So I think they hit so many right beats. It's something I wanted to bring up. You think about they had a 16-man tag match on 0 Hour. You had the big match promoted, which was Willow and Ishii against Chris and Stokely. That gets us to 20. Then we get a tag match, 30. 30 people wrestled on the pre-show. It was fine. I liked it in that way. I am not a fan of putting people on the show for the sake of putting them on the show. And we put this poll up on Twitter, and I wanted to send it out right away. Using the pre-show in that way, I think is better than forcing people on the card, on the main card. I think you want to give people that chance to say that they wrestled there, whether it be I don't know, an Action Andretti, a Satnam Singh, Private Party. You got Dark Order on the card. The Von Erichs got to wrestle on the card. Things like that. The Cage of Agony, whatever. I get that. Hey, they got to walk out there. I am an unabashed Stokely fan. I think, as everybody knows, as many of you are, the fact that he got to wrestle yesterday at Wembley Stadium and walked in there and chopped Ishii and the crowd ate it up. Everything seemed to be placed in the right spot. I am all for getting people on the show if it doesn't take away from the level of magnitude that those big matches should have. So putting it on the pre-show, putting it on 0 Hour, I love it. I love it. Because then you moved on to the stuff that earned its way onto the card. It didn't take away from anything. Just saw that in the chat. Didn't take away from anything else. And I loved, I think it was a B-May or somebody said it on there, the entrances for the ladder match. Tech took us right into the start of the show. And the crowd got hyped, and then it was like, we're starting up. And then, like, the wrestlers got back in the ring, and it was like, okay, if you're going to start with this thing, it's going to be a car crash. It's 12 people. Let's go. And I was surprised they didn't start MJF and Will. It made more sense later. I was surprised they didn't start with Toni and Mariah. I came on second. Not an easy spot to be in. But you got the big entrances. Here is one more chance to sell the card. Hey, you might know Claudio. Because if there is going to be a show where a casual fan who is not a weekly AEW fan or is maybe more of a WWE fan or a fan of TNA or that doesn't watch, this was going to be the show you're going to order or you're going to go find a way to go watch. In the AEW world, this was that show, much like the Rumble would be, or SummerSlam would be, or obviously at the biggest level, WrestleMania would be. That's going to bring fans back. There's going to be curiosity. Or, hey, it's a big show. Why don't you come over? We're gonna sure, I'll watch. And I've seen a lot of those stories, even in the last week of, hey, this is a good time to jump on. And I would even say that. I said that last week. I think, and I said this before the show yesterday, this is a good time to jump on. Whether you have the time to watch more, you want to watch more, you want to watch something different, this is probably the time to jump on. And if they don't sell you, okay, fine. A lot of people ask that. Hey, when's a good jumping in point? I get that asked about WWF stuff at the time. I always say, I jump in at 97. I go from there. I've told my story. My first full WCW show I watched was Bash at the Beach 96. By mistake. That was my jumping in point for WCW. It's a hell of a jumping in point, wasn't it? And why was it? Well, there's Nat. There's Diesel. There's Razor Ramon. Hogan? Are you kidding me? I know who Sting is. I know who Lex Luger is. I know who Macho Man is. And if you were watching last night, hey, there's Neville. I know him. There's Claudio. I know Cesaro. I know Christian. I know Aleister Black from that might have caught people's eye as the show is about to go on the air. Nerdy Dude gifting out 5 wrestling mat subscriptions, which gives me a chance very quickly to promote what we have coming up. Over 6,200 subscribers and climbing. Thank you all for that. The mat members, including the 5 that just got gifted memberships by the great Nerdy Dude, should stick around because, or not should, you better stick around. After we're done here at 1 Eastern, we're going to a new stream. And for the mat members at any level, Dom, give it to me, please, if you could. At any level, you can join us for an Ask Me, Ask Matt, anything at any level. If you are a Matt member, there it is right there. The members only live chat. It starts in the right above Todd tier, but it gets you on any of those tiers. We are doing that as soon as this show is over. As soon as we finish our normal 1 o'clock Eastern show, which we do every single weekday, we are going into a members only Ask Me Anything. So if you're not a member, maybe you just got a subscription, a membership from Nerdy Dude. But if you are a member, stick around for that. Now, also, Super Chats, as we're doing this show right now, not the members-only chat, that's later. Super Chats always get you to the front of the line, always get answered here on the show. I covered the ones that I didn't last week because we had some, electrical difficulties in my neighborhood, but all of that is taken care of. But Super Chats get you to the front of the line. Great way to support the show. If you're not subscribed yet, it's there. 22 minutes and 44 seconds might be a record of me waiting to point to the WrestlingMatchShow.com, which is always right above Todd, which is one of our tiers, as you just saw. Now, in addition to that, Dom, can I get the that beautiful membership page one more time, if you could? Dom is our producer. He does a great job. Some of you know that already. He's a busy man. 5 more from Nerdy Dude. Hang on a sec, Nerdy Dude. I'll talk about that in a sec. Right above Todd, $2.99 a month. Matt Camper level, $6.99 a month. Matt Event, $24.99 a month. You get you see what you get at each tier. And as you move on, you get everything from the previous tier. Something that we're doing. You see that 30-minute private Zoom? B-May, you have won that. We're doing that with you this week. One more time, Don. Come back, Don. Come back one time, real quick. You see that private past watch wrestling event, a watch-along, watch party? We're doing that this week. Wednesday. So Tuesday, B-May, you're getting your private Zoom. Now you can come back to me, Don. Wednesday, Nerdy Dude got to make the pick, and we are watching. And this, I've hinted at this before they showed it on Friday. The very famous Raw from Germany from nearly 30 years ago, which they showed an unbelievable package of on SmackDown last week. I can't tell you how good that was if you didn't see it yet. But they showed clips from that Raw, Owen and Bulldog, all of it. We're watching that Raw on Wednesday if you're in that tier. Nerdy Dude picked it, as he should absolutely have had the option to pick the first one based on everything he's done here for us. We are watching that. And if you're not a member, you want to be part of those things, you can do it. And I have one more announcement that nobody knows about yet. Because of the pay-per-view schedule in September, because there is no WWE pay-per-view, and yes, All In just happened. All Out is happening at a day I can't do it. Guess what? Our pay-per-view watch for the month of October is actually going to happen in the month of September. We're watching Bash at Berlin here on Saturday. We're watching Bash at Berlin right here, if you're a Matt member, at that tier on Saturday. That is an announcement that is happening today. But we have more announcement, at least one more announcement coming at some point this week, very likely tomorrow. But that is for the Matt members out there. We are watching Bash at Berlin this Saturday right here on the Wrestling Mat. So if you're not a member, You can become one and watch it with us. I hope you do so. We get a lot here. We want to offer you a lot. We got more bonus content coming up next month. We gave you a lot this month. More is coming. Top 5. Some of this stuff gets released to everybody, but the members get it first. Some of the stuff only members have gotten. My top 5 SummerSlam main events. My worst 5 SummerSlam main events. Members got that. Members got my top 5 John Cena matches of all time. They got that first. Everybody else has seen it since then. Were my favorite childhood wrestlers, which it did exactly what I hoped it would do. It led off into so many discussions in the comment section of your favorite childhood wrestlers growing up. But that was bonus content. Some of it just for the members. Some of it members got first. So if you're not a member yet, there's a lot of the things that you get. You can go check it out at thewrestlingmatchshow.com or right below. Join. And most importantly, if you join like now in the next 25, 30 minutes, you'll get to be part of that Ask Me Anything chat for members only as soon as we're done with this episode. So if you have a question you always wanted me to answer, or you haven't heard me answer it, or something you've been sitting on, you want to get in that members only live chat, that AMA coming up right after the show. But thank you for everyone for your support. I really appreciate it. Keeps this thing going. It's going to allow me to make another announcement about this show that is a very positive one. Likely tomorrow, but at some point this week, definitely. As I sidetrack. Let's get back to All In. Let's go through the show now, okay? So they open the show with the ladder match, clearly a car crash match. I was happy to see Pac get on the show because we know he's got now, I guess this is the second official match for All Out. Pac and Ospreay for the International Championship is All Out. That's coming up in a couple weeks in Chicago. Awesome. But he gets on the show. And they win the World Trios Championships along with Claudio and Wheeler Yuta. Now, I don't know if you know this. Claudio had one of the wildest wrestling weeks I can remember in quite some time. He wrestles Okada to a draw. Let me bring up his cage match, and I'll give you the dates on all this stuff. We know about Wednesday. He wrestles Okada to a draw. Impressive enough on its own. His day was not through because if you don't know, they taped all of their TV on Wednesday. So he wrestles, let's get this right, Okada to a draw on Dynamite. Later on, in the same night, he, along with Pac and Yuta, beat Lio Rush and Top Flight to get into the ladder match. So that's all Wednesday night. He then flies to Arena Mexico in Mexico City and wins the 2024 Grand Prix. Then he flies back to the UK and wrestles in a ladder match to open the show, and then appears at the end of the show. I loved seeing him. I'm not give him your flowers because that's another line that gets used too much. I love seeing him get the praise from people across the wrestling business. I don't think I've talked about him enough. Another tremendous person. And I don't know if we still call him underrated. You probably still do at some point. He's so good at what he does, and he's such a good guy. And I will tell you this, in not an indirect way, in some way, this show doesn't actually happen. It never gets created without Claudio Castagnoli. And I will tell that story one day. Not today. We have other stuff to get to. This show doesn't exist if Claudio and I did not become friendly in WWE. The first action figure my daughter ever played with was a Cesaro action figure with tape around the thighs like he used to have. But because of my time with Claudio and getting to work with him and becoming friendly with him, because of that connection, this show actually became possible. So praise him forever because he deserves it. And if you can believe this, he's a better human being than he is a wrestler. And ask anybody, maybe outside of Eddie Kingston, and I think they're good now, they'll agree with you. What a week for him. And then to get that moment, and for Pac to get that moment after he didn't work at Wembley last year, and it got the titles off the patriarchy. And then it made sense later on in the show why this match opened the show, because it was going to lead to something else that happened. We'll get to that. The second match on the show was not what I expected it to be. That second match on a show is not a great spot to be in, typically, because the crowd is so up, especially with a ladder match. Especially with already seeing, at that point, 42 wrestlers. By the fourth match, 42 people had come through the curtain. 42 people had come through the curtain to step in that ring, including a ladder match. By the time the second match of the pay-per-view got to the ring. And maybe the best built story in AEW history gets into the ring. Mariah May and Toni, for the AEW Women's World Championship. Toni's entrance was fantastic. Luther coming out in a brand new Butler tux was great. Toni, unbelievably over. I have said this, and I've heard some of the, I think, fair criticism of it. Maybe they did the turn a little too early. I think in a vacuum, the turn was done beautifully. When it was done, maybe there were a couple of down weeks here and there, but I think I understood, and I can go with that criticism, that there was too much room between the Owen win and the turn and the actual pay-per-view and title match itself. I also think that was also to establish who Mariah now was. And I think they did a good job with that. And I talked about the interview I did with her on Busted Open. And I'll give you a little fun piece of, it's not inside news. We had Mariah May on Busted Open last Friday. 2 Fridays ago, excuse me. And as you may hear when you listen to a radio show or something, you're like, this is blah, 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 and you're listening to Busted, only place for wrestling, blah, blah, Busted Open. So we asked Mariah, our producer did, hey, and with no knowledge, hey, can we have it, and we'll cut off this part if we need to, but can you say, this is the AEW Women's Champion, the Glamour Mariah May, and you're listening to Busted Open? And she's like, you want me to say it already? And yes, and we'll cut that part out if it's not the case. So she did. So you'll hear that at some point if you listen to Busted Open. And she taped it early without any knowledge. Nobody knew. That was just us playing a little, thinking ahead, having a little foresight. And now it makes sense. And they have a very solid match that picked up more. I don't think they had the audience from the jump. And following, like I said, 42 wrestlers and a ladder match with car crash stuff all over. Not easy to do, but they got him. They got him by the end, and Toni couldn't pull the trigger. She couldn't do it. And Mariah could. And I loved how they handled Mariah's mom. Because she told us on Busted Open, my family's going to be there. I want to do it in front of your family and friends. I want to murder you and take, so quietly, I want to murder you and take your championship. Just says it as part of a sentence like anything else. And they show her mom, and she gets love for her mom. And you're like, well, They don't want to like her, though. Her mom's there. Her mom's got to know she's been acting kind of shitty. 5 fingers across the face to her own mother. Oh, she really is the worst. What a terrible human being. She slapped her mother in front of the world at Wembley Stadium. That's who this Mariah May is. And then, of course, she goes on, and they show her mom, who, by the way, was established. I don't know why people are saying otherwise. You got to pay attention to the show, I guess. They established who she was. Will Smith. I would trust my lyrics right now better than Will Smith's. And then after Mariah wins, they show Toni, and she has lost her mind again, much like she did last year. They show her in the back. She literally is still in gear. She's messed up. She's somewhere else. And she like walks over the barrier, and that's it. She's gone. And it's like she can't handle what happened. And Mariah can go on. And Mariah, I will skip ahead a little. Mariah said in multiple interviews, she said it with us last week, we're both, she said it in her movie as well. We're all going to die. We're both going to die. But I'll get to deliver your eulogy. And she walked out. She pulled the paper out, and she did that. And that is how it's done. She said she was going to do it. She followed through like a heel. You could say she gave it away a little bit. Didn't mean she had to. And she nailed it. She did what Toni has done, a prepared statement. And then she took the veil off because she's like, now we talk about me. Oh, do you want to ask me a question? I'm not answering those questions. And she walked out. And that was a great use of the press conference. But I'm very excited for Mariah to take her place. There are opportunities to make stars or want to make stars and hit those right notes. It doesn't happen all the time. I'm not trying to compare who they are, but the execution and everything they've wanted to do with Mariah May from the jump, and she told us last week, this story was pitched to me to come in to do. Not, hey, we signed you, we'll figure it out. This was why they brought her in. Toni saw this in her. You're coming in, this is for you. Now, that says a lot for a company to go, hey, we have something for you. You've never worked here before. You're going to do this. And they executed it, and they executed it perfectly. And they made a star exactly how they wanted to. They made a self-serving, selfish star in Mariah May. They executed it exactly as they wanted to. Everybody played their roles well. Shout out to Mr. Skinner for his writing skills. City and local knows what I'm talking about. And that doesn't always happen. And here's my comparison. Roman Reigns did not become what WWE wanted as a babyface in terms of the crowd reaction. That's the guy. We're going with him. Oh no, they're booing him. Wait a minute. They're not taking to this like we want. It's tougher with a babyface. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, we're at now. It's exactly what they wanted from Roman, and probably even more so now. It's not easy to hit that execution at that level. AEW did that 2 times last night. 2 times. We'll get to the other one because it's coming up a little bit. But they did it 2 times last night. Hook and Jericho, FTW title. The right person won. As soon as I saw Jericho in the orange, I tweeted, I said, I hope that brings, that's gimmick infringement. Taz owns orange. Ask him. I even put the little trademark next to the color orange. And I said, when I saw him in the orange, someone's getting a Taz mission. And from the jump, Brian Keith and Big Bill are like, I was like, who's coming out to back up Hook here? How was that happening? And you can hear Taz like, I know the rules. I made the rules. You know what? I'm up. And he gets up and he chokes out Brian Keith. And Jericho looks away and Hook wins. And they get a nice moment. I think that's if you're going to use Taz in that way, that does nothing to Brian Keith. They put Big Bill through the table. Hook overcame all of them. Hook also overcame quite the crowd reaction for Big Bill over the weekend. The heartbeat nod also got a pop. That was great. Very well executed. Somebody just said it. I think Ken just said it. I agree. I don't think that title is necessary anymore. I think Hook can go, hey, I brought it back where it belongs in our family. Hand it to his dad, put it away, whatever. The legacy has been preserved. And now I can move on to other things. I think that's the way to go. We'll see. And even like somebody asked about like Toni, like that got asked yesterday about it, and Hook was giving short answers, and it's like, I was brought back as a joke, which was a really shitty way to ask the question. And Toni jumped in and was like, hey, I wasn't bringing it back as a joke. It was never a joke. It's not, it's recognized within AEW. It's not an AEW championship. And it worked within Team Taz and Ricky Starks and all those guys and Cage and all that stuff. Hook got it back. Hook preserves the legacy of the championship, and they move on. It is a nice jacket, Yobi. It's my Kith jacket. The one that Cody Rhodes once gave me shit for wearing it on the bump because he said I was peacocking. The tag match. Bucks, Acclaimed, FTR. Bucks come out with Sgt. Pepper. They're the Beatles of wrestling or something like that. I said to you guys the other day, I said this is either the Bucks or Acclaim's match. I didn't see it going to FTR. 13 minutes and 32 seconds. It was okay. I think so much other stuff on the card had been built up in a bigger way that, Billy Gunn got his moment again. For what, I don't know. I get it. People like him, but he shouldn't be the most over guy in the match, and he was. I'll say it again. Anthony Bowen should. I hope there's a Acclaim breakup just for the fact that I think they might be better off on their own. Bucks win. Who takes them out? We don't know. Who's going to win the tag titles from them? We don't know. The match was okay. I don't think we're going to be talking about that one. It was fine. I don't think it's a match we're going to be talking about. I don't think you'll remember that, it was not a standout on a pay-per-view that had a lot of standout stuff. And as we just put in the chat, if you're a member, there's the link. We'll be going live for our members coming up right after this. If you're a Matt member, you could be in the AMA. And if you're not a Matt member, it's right there. Well, there's that link. Keep that link saved if you're a Matt member, right? But down below, you can hit join. You can become part of our Matt members. Then you can enjoy it. You can ask your questions there. And I've gotten some questions already. Bring them on over. If you got questions you absolutely want answered right now, super chats. Great way to support the show. Whether within the conversation or I'll get to them at some point, but they will be answered, but it moves you to the front of the line. Nerdy, you just gave out 5 more subscriptions. So now, more people can join us for the Ask Me Anything coming up right after this. Nerdy Dude is He's got platinum status here. Thank you to Nerdy Dude. He's been with us from the jump, and he wants to bring more people along. As we saw in the Casino Gauntlet. Now, we talked about this a little bit already. You open with Orange. You get Okada in there. You get Nigel. And, I mean, man, the hits keep coming. You know, Zach gets in there. And just to get those moments where just the face-off brings you up, brings the crowd to their feet. That's when you know you have something. And this match kept having that. And then Christian comes out, and I went, oh, that's why they did the ladder match. Because my angle alert sense, my spidey sense went off. I went, oh, this might be a certain father's match to win here, or lose for that matter. And then Killswitch came out. It looked like they were going to break it up. And then I'm going, wait, is Nigel going to win this thing? Is Nigel going to win this thing? So we get Nigel and Bryan. We didn't know what was going on. Maybe Nigel winning would have tipped off the main event. But I love what that match is. My only gripe, it is a very small one. And it is something that you deal with in triple threats, in fatal four-ways, in five-ways, in six-pack challenges. It's hard to have all those people, 5, 3, 4, 5, whatever it was in this. What did they get, a 16, 17 in this match more? It's hard to keep everybody on screen and doing something. But those moments were singular. And look, as long from a kayfabe strategy standpoint, as long as you could break up the pin, take a breather. Rumble spots get those, right? Everybody kind of clears out or they lay in the corner, whatever. Boom, 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 boom. But there was so many things that intersected. So Hassan just said, and Nerdy Dude just got you a subscription, membership. Disappointed with the finish. I like Christian, but man, I wanted Hangman or less Okada or Nigel. And that is pro wrestling. You didn't get what you wanted. You didn't get it. And people wanted, I see a couple of you saying, Hangman should have won. But Hangman winning is not the correct way to move that story along. You have to drive him more and more mad, angry, rage. His first shot to get to Swerve for the title, second shot, because he didn't win the Owen. You got to keep putting those roadblocks in front of him so he can absolutely try to tear them down by any means necessary, no matter who's standing in front of him. He is so blinded with rage, and you have to keep feeding that rage. And how did they feed that rage last night? Well, him and Jeff Jarrett mix it up again. And Jeff gets power. Jeff Jarrett taking an over-the-top rope power bomb. Not on the bingo card. Not on the Wrestling Mad Libs. But then Karen, Hangman gets her. Oh, my God, what's he do? El Kabong. And Jeff costs Hangman that chance. And they showed it, even though they made sure Christian got that moment. They showed Hangman getting angry. Jeff got his moment. Everybody got moments in that match. Everybody that should have had it. They teased the stuff with Christian and Killswitch, which is going to happen at some point. But in the end, Killswitch did what he had to do, even though he continues to get treated like dirt by Christian, and Christian gets the spot. Christian gets the shot now, whenever he wants it. So now we have two contenders already lined up. You have Christian at some point in the future, and you have Darby Allin, because he won the Royal Rampage, and he'll do that at Grand Slam next month. So you have the next, you have it, maybe not the next two, but two more contenders already lined up before the main event even takes to the ring. That's good stuff to me. There was so much fan service in that match with the big entrances and Nigel and Zack Sabre and all of that stuff. And Ricochet. Once again, I talked all about that, and he was like an afterthought. More of a compliment to how good the show was. But you had all of the nice stuff, and then Christian pulled it away. It's Pro Wrestling 101. There's about 5 or 6 other guys that absolutely could have won that match, or would have been big fan pops to win that match, whether they were baby faces or heels. And who wins it? The most dastardly heel of them all in all of professional wrestling, Christian. And you go, yeah, son of a bitch. And that's Christian. And I would hope that Christian and Bryan Danielson happens. Because that's a hell of a match. Oh. I should save that conversation because I just thought of how much Bryan's family was involved in the lead up and last night. Just here, Christian, here's all the material you could possibly need. Let me make your job as easy as possible. Here's Birdie, here's Buddy, here's a Bella. It's on a tea. It's on a silver platter. Oh, I can't wait. The stuff he's going to say. It's worth it. He ain't going to beat Bryan. I don't care. Oh, it's going to be wonderful. There are promos there are promo battles. There are back and forths that are just going to be good. I can't wait for that. And maybe I need to frame it that way for everybody. If you were bummed with the loss, if it felt a little flat, a Christian win shouldn't feel big. There you go. The T-Pro. What won Bryan the championship will now be Christian's greatest weapon. Love it. Exactly. Oh, my goodness. Oh. I know I was flipping through the other day, and I saw they had like some Randy Orton marathon on, like they do on the WWE YouTube channel, and they had all the Christian matches on it. A completely different Christian than this one. More of a chicken shit heel, where he is a chicken shit heel now, but he's more of like an open like asshole about it dick. He was more of like, I want another match, please. That run in 2011, because it happens in the summer of Punk, if you know kind of thing, the Christian Orton run of matches is so damn good. I have no problem saying it's Christian's best stuff, and I think it's Randy's best stuff. Just what that turned into with the Edge retirement, and then Christian winning, and then losing to Randy, and then he becomes the heel. And, that happened at Money in the Bank 2011. We talked about that recently. The finish to that match, which would be so flat. The money, and I don't want to give it away if you haven't seen it, but the finish to the Money in the Bank World Heavyweight Championship match between Christian and Orton should get people so angry, and the reaction is completely different, and it's so good, and their whole run of matches is so good. It's... be made with the Christian Tomko reference at TNA, yes. Go watch it. Anyway, Christian Danielson promos. Can't wait. Let's go to Ospreay and MJF. By the way, the longest match on the show, there was a tie. I'm just going off of Wikipedia stats. 26 minutes was the Casino Gauntlet and the main event. Will and MJF went 25-50. So they didn't go overboard for the sake of going overboard on a 9-match show. Still went long. You tell me. Didn't feel like a slog. Didn't feel like we were trudging along in the show. Everything seemed to build correctly, not go overboard. That is a great thing to have. When a wrestling show doesn't, and AEW shows have felt long. That's a good call. J19. Nothing overstayed its welcome. So MJF and Ospreay. MJF gets the big entrance. So he comes out like Apollo Creed, but his gear was Lex Express. Because I said that to somebody else. I was like, he's wearing the Lex gear. Unbelievable. Please don't do a count out like SummerSlam 93. But he wore straight up Lex USA gear. That was his in-ring gear. Wonderful. Don't just do Hogan stuff. He did red and yellow at Rev Pro a couple weekends ago. Good on that. But the Lex stuff, and they didn't do different music. I was surprised. The Burberry scarf is American colors, but his straight up music, which the crowd sang, which was great. But Will had that big Assassin's Creed entrance, which not my game. But I think Will was talking about it today, and whoever created the game was in it or something. We'll talk, and I'm sure that popped people. It was cool. But Ospreay getting, holy hell, like what he got in Cardiff on Wednesday, what he got yesterday, that's a different level of over. And these two had a great match. I mean, you want to talk about styles making fights. Two completely different guys. To me, you're always going to get a better match when the guys are that different. They have to adapt their stuff, or you got to be able to work with the other. But that goes such a long way. I loved watching Shawn Michaels work against the bigger guy as a babyface. Because he'd have to sell, and he'd have to find ways to get away from it. He'd have to stick and run, but he'd have to sell, and he'd have to get beat down. And then he would find a way back, and he had a finisher he could hit on a big guy. I watched something, I think Grapple Clips put it up the other day. Shawn and Yoko, late in the Yoko run. And Shawn's bumping all over the place, and he's flying all over the ring because he's keeping the action moving. He's picking up the pace. He is creating the movement. He's running into Yoko. He's feeding for Yoko. But then in the end, flying clothesline. There's the 4. And he had super kick, and he beat him. Because you believe the super kick could work. It was a kick to here. I don't care who that's coming from. They hit it right, you're down. You're done. You're down for at least 3. And Shawn was good like that against bigger guys because Styles made it that way. Shawn as a babyface working against a bigger heel is another Pro Wrestling 101 thing to me. You got to topple the Giants. You got to. It's Hogan in the 80s. Yeah, he was huge, but they just lined up a bunch of guys for him to chop down, to bring down. Kevin Nash just told the story the other day on his podcast, remembering, the late, great Kevin Sullivan. They did the Dungeon of Doom because it's what worked with Hogan in the 80s and the 90s in WWF. Here's a bunch of big guys that you're going to beat. We know you're going to beat them, but they're big or scary or bad along the way. Sometimes the formula works. The formula in this was hateable heel going into the babyface's territory, messing with him the whole way, messing him up on Wednesday night, cheating behind the ref's back the way he did to win the title. Saying all kinds of messed up stuff along the way. Eating some crow, little egg on his face on Wednesday, but getting it right back. But to walk into the rematch that he had already won the first one of and wanting that entire crowd for MJF to lose, that's what a good heel should do. And when you beat a heel like MJF, who is at that level, who has already got the resume, of one of AEW's most accomplished wrestlers. Now he has that as ammo as a heel. I was champ for 400 days. At Wrestle When I Won. Oh, when I beat you, it was easy. It was only 59 minutes, 59 seconds, but I took care of business. I've won the Dynamite Diamond Ring 3 times. Blah, 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 blah. But he's got all that ammo to use. It gives you more reason to hate him. So it sets up the match. It's so simple, but it also is when it's done well, you now have an opportunity to put Will at the level he needs to be at. Not that he wasn't close to it already, but let's solidify that. And you throw everything in Will's way on the way there. And you tell that story you've told for months of, will he do what he needs to do to shut this asshole up? And what it was that move, the Tiger Driver. And what did they tell him on Wednesday? Danielson says, do it. I know what it did to me. Do it. And we got the little bonus of Daniel Garcia screwing with Max. You got the tease with the cameraman getting taken out in the outside. Garcia shows himself. MJF has seen a ghost. I thought I put this kid away. I thought I sent him out of the company. And Will realizes, and you could see the maniacal look on his face. Not happiness. Not complete happiness. Like, I've got, okay. And that place came up. It's every beat you wanted to hit with the reaction you needed to get, and they got it, and he won. And then Daniels, much like the New Day at WrestleMania, when Bryan had that hemp title, which sat on my desk for years when I worked at WWE. It did. No, that's not your championship. Ian Woods give Kofi the black strap title. This is your title. No. Will, you're not the American champion. That's what he said it was. You are here. We are an international company. Here is the international championship once again. And Conrad will buy that American title in like 10 years. I don't know. And you make Will. You also make that title far more important. Think of the work that's been done with that title from Orange Cassidy, really first and foremost. But Roddy and Will winning it from Roddy, and then MJF winning it after a 400-plus day title reign as the world champion and taking it from Will. And then it becomes this, the centerpiece of MJF being this American, we're great, all that bullshit. But Will needing to win the title back, needing to do what he needed to do finally to shut MJF up and put him down. And in 26 minutes, 25 minutes and 50 seconds, you got everything you wanted out of that match. Will won, and by beating MJF, Will goes up another level. It doesn't hurt MJF in the slightest. He can get all of that back in one promo. All of it. I had to go over there with all those stinking British people, international. Nobody wanted me to win. How was I supposed to get that done? And you needed that Punk Garcia. He cuts one promo. He's fine. But Will wins that now. Now it's Will and Pac at All Out in a couple weeks. Great stuff. And MJF in this role. He should not lose often. He shouldn't. Because he is good. He's great. His resume is arguably second to none in AEW. And he knows it. And he'll tell you that. But you have to shut him up. And he needs to get comeuppance. And it should be tough to get. He should put all those barricades, and he should put those roadblocks in your way, and you should go on a journey where he should win, and he should beat you up or bloody you or cause you to get messed up in some way or push your buttons. That's what a great top-line heel will do. It's not about getting pops. It's not about cheap references. It's being able to eat shit when it's time for you to eat shit. That win matters more when all of that other stuff happens first. That's a very valuable asset for AEW to have is someone like MJF who can get that out of a babyface, who can be the right foil. You need that kind of foil. They need more people like Christian, more people like MJF. That when you beat them, it feels better for those who are rooting for the babyface. I don't need more dream matches. You can make those dream matches happen when you go, here's a babyface and here's a heel. Now let's build the story. They have every kind of dream match they could possibly have because they have an unreal roster of workers. Unreal. But that story mattered way more because of that match mattered way more because of all of the story that was told and the character work that was done. Will Ospreay has never had to, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, he's never had to put in that level or really was given that opportunity to put in that level of character work because that's not what he was doing before AEW. New Japan doesn't do that. The indies don't afford that opportunity to do that. Will was a great wrestler that got over based on his matches and how cool they looked, and that's fine. But to keep moving up and to keep evolving, there's got to be more to you than that. I've said this for the last 5 years. There are great matches all over the place. There are matches that generate GIFs that we see on social media that people catch. They're happening all the time now. Even if the match sucked, if there's one good GIF, you know what? That will get you booked on an indie because people will follow you because of that. And then a promoter will go, hey, that person's got 5, 6, 7, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 followers. No. It's not about how good they are. It's are they making – that's fine. Will did that. Will and Ricochet did that in the best of Super Juniors years ago. 10 years ago at this point, whatever the hell it was. That match has and now will be copied, those spots. I talked about this recently. Kalani Jordan and Sol Ruka did that. They were doing Will and Ospreay spots. Will and Ricochet spots. Will got over, got popular because of that. But to keep going and be a weekly television wrestler, you can't do those matches all the time. You can't. But you can build to those matches over time. And they did that. And Nerdy Dude, to ask your question, Pac already challenged the winner a couple weeks ago. So it's going to be Pac and Ospreay for the International Championship at All Out. Which brings us to our next match. Mercedes against Britt. Big entrance for Mercedes. Britt over. It was never going to be easy for anybody to follow that match. It wasn't. That's the nuts and bolts of it. Mercedes and Britt went 17 minutes and 25 seconds. I don't think they got to where they wanted to. I don't know if it was where they wanted to go. I don't know if it was where they needed to go. I think a lot of people tell you it was just flat. It was just flat. And maybe a big reason, perhaps a big reason, is because Britt Baker, before yesterday, and I was just confirming this, had wrestled a grand total of 2 matches since September 16th, 2003, when she lost to Chris Statlander at Penn State. She wrestled Sheeta for 10 minutes at Blood and Guts, and she wrestled Harley Cameron at Collision a week ago. And that was it. And then she's got to go out there with Mercedes, who has looked very good since coming back from her injury for the most part. Thought she looked very good against Willow. I think she's had good matches. I think the match with Sheeta was good. It was just slow in spots. And once again, very hard to follow that. Very hard to follow it. Maybe they lost their way. Maybe they lost their way in the feud because of the suspension. I don't know. This whole thing hasn't clicked like it should have, and I want to compare that to something. Becky Lynch and Trish Stratus largely did not click. I was there for all of it. Did not click in the way you would want it to. Call it bad booking, call it meshing of styles or lack there meshing of styles, call it people not wanting to boo Trish. And then their match, which should have happened at SummerSlam, got moved to that, whatever it was. Was it Fastlane or Backlash or whatever the hell one of those was called? Not Backlash. Payback. They had that Unreal Cage, and they killed it. They finished strong. I had said, hey, Brock Roman for WrestleMania 31 has a shit build, but a great match. Mercedes and Bianca for WrestleMania 37 has a shit build and a great match. I had optimism, I would call it, that even though the build has been up and down, that Mercedes, who's a big-time, top-tier worker in the ring, she might be polarizing with the character and all that stuff and how she talks, but when she's in there, she's good. She's had good matches. We've seen it. I had the confidence. I don't think it hit the beats they wanted to hit. I also wonder about Mercedes' finish. When is that conversation happening? It's like when Cena was doing the springboard stunner. Sure, when he hit it, it was good, but it didn't get hit enough, and he said, that's gone. We're getting rid of that one. She's got good stuff. She worked for years and made her name on the stuff she did. I get trying to reinvent yourself. I totally get that. I totally understand that. Jericho adding the code breaker when he did. I totally got that. But if your finish is not going to hit 99% of the time, like if you're not always just able to hit it, it looks good, and maybe it shouldn't be your finish. There's a lot of other places for both these two to go and come back to this at some point in time. While so many things delivered on this card, I don't think that delivered. But both are both over enough to get it back. Jack Perry and Darby Allin Coffin match for the AEW TNT Championship. Darby coming out with the thumbtacks in his face. The whole, both these guys have been established at who they are. You don't often see, and I saw somebody just say it, someone lose a match like this clean without lots of help. And that's why the finish was weird to me. Because Jack just beat him. Or, Jack just beat him. I didn't think he was going to lose. But it just kind of happened. They did a bunch of wild stuff. I don't think they sold that push off the stage spot big enough. It felt like, whether it be commentary, I thought they could have made a way bigger deal than that. And I know that led to the finish, which is even more so a reason that could have been played up even bigger. It didn't come across that way on commentary. It was just like, oh, yeah, that he took a big fall. And it wasn't even like a big, like, he just kind of knocked him over and he fell. And I was like, that was a long way down. That was a long way. Like, okay, that's, whoa, what the fuck? You're my voice. I'm cracking like a teenager here because that was a big deal. And then comes back up and puts him down. Okay, so Jack wins. Sure. 10 minutes and 40 seconds for a Coffin match between those two guys. Felt like they needed like five more minutes. That was I would say, of all the matches, that could have gotten 5 more minutes of brutality. It just didn't feel like the brutality matched up. And I will say, I do wonder if that was protecting Darby a bit. It's a Coffin match. Nobody gets pinned or submitted anyway. It's not a typical job. It's not a typical favor to be done. So you can have Darby lose and you're keeping him protected because he has a world title shot coming up next month. But you still brought the Bucks out after with the gas. And here's what I'll say about that. No problem teasing the spot. They're way too cutesy about the fact they were coming down the aisle to light a guy on fire. That they're like kissing the can and being all like, no, you can be assholes. You can be real scumbags in that point. Maybe if they had lost, they would have been angrier, but it was very much like, we're still in our whatever gear attire. Like, we have this gas can and they kissed the gas. Like, no, you're going to go set a guy on fire. That should be a different look. There should be a different level of intensity there. And then they threaten, and of course, Sting comes out, and that gets a big pop. All I'm saying is, I don't think Jack needs to win that one clean. He's a heel. We know he's got people by his side. They could have super kicked him off the stage. They all drag him into the Coffin. He gets one hope spot. They kick him down again. All you had to do was super kick off the stage. Jack helps all 3 of them. Boom, right? And then they all drag him. They put him in the body bag. You throw him in the Coffin. You think he's done. He sits up. You super kick him one more time, all 3 of them. You put tacks on your feet, whatever. Close it. Now they win. Doing that versus Jack winning clean, there's no difference to me. And it protects Darby even more. And then, now you go to the gas tank. Because Sting doesn't come out to save Darby because he's not supposed to be there. But now you're going to murder him? Yeah, you can come out of retirement for that one. That's all. That's a pretty easy fix to me. Jack's positioning is the same whether he wins that clean or he gets help from the Bucks because of who he's already aligned with. He's still credible. He's going to remain credible. Instead, you beat Darby clean in a Coffin match. And he's got a title match coming up next month. You got the big moments thing. All that stuff could have happened. I would have had the Bucks interfere sooner. Oh, well. Good, not great. Main event, Bryan Danielson, Swerve Strickland. Big entrances for both, as there should be. All the sense in the world. Great video packages. And my God, did that crowd want to see everything Bryan Danielson was going to offer them. They didn't want him to lose. But I also think a lot of people in that crowd knew that they needed to soak in every bit of what they got from Bryan Danielson last night. Every bit. Because it could have been it. And I wrote on Twitter, I said he came out with such a big smile on his face. And it wasn't a tell to me. Because that could have been a smile of, I'm winning tonight with my family watching. in the front row, or I'm losing tonight with my family watching in the front row, and I'm going to go home with them. And my career is over, and I'm happy to do that. There was an exuberance. There was an intensity. There was an investment in everything he's done in this feud, but especially last night. Oh, man, he's really enjoying this. He told the story of, WrestleMania 37. He ends up getting inserted back into the main event. With Edge and Roman, because that wasn't over. And it didn't matter to him. And they had a hell of a match. And then he put Roman over on the way out. He did his job well, but he didn't care. He was done. You wouldn't have known it, but you would have known it if you compared that run to where what we saw, I should say, from Bryan last night. You saw a guy who was thrilled at the moment, who came out to the final countdown, who knew he was about to have a hell of a match because of the respect level he has for Swerve as a performer. And what I also like about that is Swerve played the role he needed to play. He was a scumbag, but he is a champion that people still love and people understood. Hey, he's going up against Bryan Danielson. His career's on the line. You got to do whatever it takes. You got to do whatever. And bringing Bryan over, all messed up like he was to his family. And Brie having to cover up their faces. I put it up right away. I saw comparisons on Twitter. I wasn't the only one. It was Royal Rumble 99. It was the I Quit match. It was Beyond the Mat. Noelle Foley. If you believe the story that she was supposed to be the one to quit for Mick in that match. And they did the voice recording instead. And then you saw after the fact all those chair shots, and he's bleeding out of his head. And they're literally carrying a bucket of ice that still had sodas in it to catch the blood and ice or whatever off his head. Instead, you have a family, one of which has been in the wrestling business, and two kids who you don't really see. You hear about them, but they're not at these events and shows, at least not part of it. And they were right there watching all of it, Bernie and Buddy. And I hope Tony Khan bonus them, by the way, because they earned it. They added so much, and Swerve is just being as big of a piece of shit as possible to them. And then Nana does a quick dance. Oh. And you wanted Bryan to win that much more. And then at the end, he's beat up, and they come check on him, and his neck's all screwed up, and hit the judo driver, whatever it was, a kudo driver, vertebreaker, whatever you want to call it, all that stuff. And Bryan has that one kick out where he's down, and it's 1, 2, and he just kind of literally just shimmies forward. And it's those kickouts are tough for crowds to react to, especially with 50,000 people there, because you want to see the big motion, right? You want to see the big motion. But they knew the match wasn't over, which means he was still alive. And the crowd came to their feet. And that happened like 2 or 3 times late in the match, where they reacted because his career was still going on. His career was not done yet. As long as that bell didn't ring on a pinfall, they still had their guy. His career was going to continue as long as that bell didn't ring with his shoulders on the mat. And if the ref stopped to count, they were excited because Bryan Danielson wasn't done yet. And that's why, while you could pick apart and find loopholes of why did he put his career on the line, he said he wanted to be done, they made it clear. They made it clear he was going to be done. And if you know what? For Bryan Danielson to go, you know what? I got to put it on the line. This is it. If I don't win this, what do I have? I got to win. I got to do this now. I believed he was done. I watched that match so intently because I knew I might be watching Bryan Danielson wrestle for the very last time. And I feel like they made that connection. So every kick out late in the match, whether it was dramatic or just enough to get off the mat before the 3, every bit of the crowd was with that. And they came to their feet. And someone just mentioned it, T-Pro. When he's telling his family that he loves them as he's eating the kicks, I'm getting emotional now even saying that. You can't be more powerful than that. Because he might have got put down there. Like he might have ate all those kicks and got put down. But he would have went down looking his family in the eye. Saying, I love you. I'm doing this for you. I wanted you to. And it didn't, and he fought through it. And Swerve no-sold that knee because it got him there. And I went, oh, God, he's going to lose. They're telling the story that he doesn't have enough left to beat the top guy in the company. I believed at that moment that he was going to lose when Swerve shrugged it off. It wasn't, to me, Swerve no-selling it. It was that Bryan didn't have enough left to put into it. So it wasn't his best finish. It wasn't his best execution because he had been through the ringer in his career and this year and the beatdowns, and he just didn't have enough left. But he did. He did have enough left. He did get the people behind them, his family behind him. And we got the Hangman thing, and that's going to lead to more. But it was just enough for Swerve to take his eye off the ball. And Bryan beat him. And he tapped out the champ. And I'll tell you what, I think it mattered more. And the crowd came up, and JR on the call. It's everything you could want. The career continues for how long, we don't know. Toni said it after. We don't know. We're going to hear, we'll see what he says on Wednesday. Okay, sure. But you got that moment, and the family came in, and Cesar, all of it. It's a storybook ending to the best and maybe better characterized to me as the most important show AEW has done. When you announce that Forbidden Door is coming to London next year, when you announce that you're going to Australia next year, when you know that you're going to All in Texas. The execution of the biggest stuff on the show hit. And I would hope, if you cared about it enough, that you'll follow up on Wednesday. And I if you asked me, I would want to know what happens next. And maybe people watching went, okay, cool, I checked it out. But it's what happens next. And now you have that. Now you have that story to tell of, is the next match the last one? And there's Christian, and there's Darby, and do we get back to Swerve, and does Hangman get involved? And on top of everything else, Nigel came back. Do we get Nigel and Bryan Danielson? There's so many things that can come out of this show. I as someone who watches all of this all the time, I think I said, somebody asked me, how did my fandom change since I've been in the business? I said the stuff I really liked would always jump out that much more. Because you're in the machine of, even when I was working at WWE, hey, Raw's on. All right, we're watching 3 hours of Raw. I'm watching 2 hours. I am watching it. There's autopilot that goes on sometimes, and it's like, I know this stuff's not that good and not that over. Or, hey, we're not going to talk about this on the show. So when stuff was really good, it jumped out to me. Roman coming back, all the stuff they've done the last couple of weeks, the beatdown last week, everything they've done with Rhea and Damian, you can feel it jump out. Gunther and Randy, what they've done has jumped out. The majority of the Punk and Drew stuff has jumped out. But it's got to be really good to jump out to someone like me. To others, I love listening to the feedback on these kind of matches and what you liked or what you didn't like or what made you feel something. To me, I look at a show like that yesterday and say, they got people back. Maybe they made some new fans, and they have some cool stuff coming down the pipeline that maybe will start to help the attendance, because I do think they had turned a corner in probably the last 3 or 4 months, probably since Dynasty. I feel like the show and the company, and every company is going to have their faults, and there's still a startup in that way. But I think they've gotten on a much better track. And you still got to win people back, though. And if you turn them away, and every company they turn people away, you got to win some people back. Or sometimes you erode that fan base. Sometimes that happens. I hope that's not the case. We have gone very long. I wanted to talk more about Kevin Owens. I'm going to save that for tomorrow. Nerdy Dude gave out 5 memberships. It would appear, as I've just been told, that a certain old wrestling podcaster did about 6 minutes and 40 seconds on me about my my commentary on my time in WWE and leaving the company. I have not watched this yet. Apparently, I am not a real American. So, Dutch, I'll watch it later. I put you over on this show for shouting out Joe Hendry. I'll watch it later because we have a Matt member AMA coming up right after this. And if I feel like I need to respond, I will. But Dutch, thank you so much for using me as clickbait. I appreciate it. Send some people our way. Have them become a Matt member at thewrestlingnetshow.com. I love it. I love having you here, subscribing, commenting, turning on the notifications, whatever it may be. But I don't have time to watch that 6.5 minute clip right now because the people who truly support me, everybody that's here, those that are Matt members, they have more to come. Dom, real quick, put it up there. Tell the people, because they got a couple of minutes here. If you're not a Matt member yet, Nerd Dude gave out like 15 memberships today. $2.99 a month gets you into that members-only live chat that is going to be happening right after this show. If we could throw the link in the chat, that would be helpful as well. But if you're at any one of these levels, you can be part of our members-only Ask Me, Ask Matt Anything. That's going to be in a new stream right after this is over. So if you are a member, go follow the link. Please do so. It is pinned at the top. I was just being told that. Nerdy Dude just gave out 5 more memberships because he is the best. He is the Santa Claus of the wrestling mat. So if you're a member, get locked in. If you're not a member, get locked in. Follow that link because we're going to shut this show down right now. We're going to go over to the members-only AMA. And don't forget, one more time, for those of you that won't be joining us there and you want to, in addition to the AMA that's coming up in just a matter of minutes, if you're at that top level, like B-May is, he's getting a 30-minute Zoom with me tomorrow. If you want to be part of our retro watch party, which is going to be on Wednesday, we're going to watch that very special Raw from about 30 years ago in Germany. That's on Wednesday. If you want to be part of these things or any of these other perks, you got to become a member at thewrestlingmatchshow.com or just click below. Just click below. Right there, right in this area. And the good thing is, no matter who you are, if you subscribe and turn the notifications on, you'll be back with us because I'll be back with you tomorrow and each and every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern to talk about wrestling even more. See the members over in the other stream for the AMA and see everybody else tomorrow right here at thewrestlingmatchshow.com.